Brand new week. This is Frontier Opening Bell, and I am Temple Ashaju. Ali Kansachu joins us from Nairobi, Kenya, the founder of Rich Frontiers Management in Kenya. Thank you so much, Ali, for coming through. Bosin Omofaye, executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Gentlemen, thank you for making this show a possible one this morning. Let's look at the markets where they were for Friday and, of course, week-to-date performance. For the Nigerian exchange, it was down 1.3% week-to-date at 38,000 plus. At the BRVM stock exchange at 160.47, it was positive on Friday by 33 basis points. The GTBank stock exchange, which is EGX, at 9,797.91, was down on Sunday yesterday by 69 basis points. And you have the Nairobi Securities Exchange positive marginally, a bit of a bump against the flat line by 0.03% week to date at 172.38 points. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange was positive, or was negative rather, 1.43% at 65,000 plus. Now let's look at the East African headlines. We've got Kenya is rebasing its economy later in 2021 on Eurobond flotation. Kenya Airways increases flights to the United States of America to 3 times weekly. The Capital Market Authority in Kenya jumps into Cytonn Investments default on 13.5 billion shillings fund. Kenya Central Bank accepts treasury bills worth some 17.3 billion Kenyan shillings. That's the weekly auction that took place last week. In Uganda, banks' emergency borrowing reaches some 155 billion shillings for the month of April. And finally, World Bank approved some $292 million funding for infrastructure projects in Zanzibar. Quite a number of headlines around Kenya, which is the bigwig in that Eastern African community, actually. Help us to understand what this means today first, Ali, and then we hear your thoughts, Bosin.
So, good morning, Temple. Let me go through these sequentially. Kenya, of course, issued a Eurobond last week, 12-year Eurobond, 6.3% yield. And in that prospectus, they were speaking to the fact that they were going to rebase the economy. Of course, the skew in any rebasing in Africa is for the GDP to get larger. The challenge that people are wrestling with at the moment are a number. One challenge is that we have not seen full year GDP data for last year. We've not seen first quarter statistics out of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So, people are questioning when that data will be produced. But overall, clearly the economy has expanded. The question, however, reverts back to this. It really, when it comes to the challenge around debt, it's about the debt service ratio. And you can rebase the GDP number, but if it's not impacting your debt service ratio, it's really a moot point. So I think people have a lot of questions around this rebasing, and it's not the panacea that it's being presented as being. Kenya Airways increasing flights to the US 3 times weekly. That will be a welcome development. Our tourism sector has been under quite a bit of pressure. The recovery has been slow and forthcoming, and most of our hospitality businesses are relying on domestic tourism, which really cannot carry the load that international tourism has left. This CMA story is interesting. Cytonn, which is a real estate investment group, basically took in a lot of investor money on the basis that they were disintermediating the banks and were happy to feed back much higher rates of interest to those who placed their money with them. Last year, when COVID hit, they basically restructured a lot of these deposits in their various funds and have delayed paying out since that time. They've offered folks real estate in return, or they've said if they do a fire sale, you only get back 30 cents in the shilling. A lot of noise was around, a lot of unhappiness. The CMA tweeted that, you know, if you have a complaint, you've got to go to the investigation department. And furthermore, there seems to be a challenge in that, you know, some of Cytonn's businesses are regulated by the CMA and some are not. So, you know, that is another quandary. But, you know, we've had a big slowdown in real estate. This was quite a leveraged play on the real estate market. And naturally, I think, you know, they've hit some liquidity breaks at the moment. T-bills have actually been performing very well, oversubscribed of late, and interest rates gliding a little bit lower in the T-bill market. Banks seem to have quite an insatiable appetite at the moment, particularly for one-year T-bills, which are being heavily oversubscribed. Bank of Uganda emergency borrowing reaches 155 billion in April. With the support coming through from the IMF, one would hope that we'll see some easing of that borrowing going forward. And the World Bank has okayed $292 million funding for infrastructure projects in Zanzibar. That's positive for Zanzibar. Zanzibar obviously is a big tourist destination. And also, funnily enough, with quite a bit of natural gas apparently in the vicinity of the island. But it's good to see the World Bank stepping up. Basically, the new administration in Dodoma has been signaling, you know, the multilaterals to come back in. They've taken a whole new stance when it comes to COVID. There's been plenty of support behind the new president. And I think the Zanzibar funding is an example of that.
Thank you very much, Ali. Let's have you take it up from there, Bosin. What can $292 million mean for Zanzibar, a major place where the Chamber of Commerce the other time was talking about getting some of the tourist companies and some of those key economic actors listed on the exchange?
Temple, I think you were talking about, because I remember the last time was they were planning their own stock exchange. Yes. Away from what is the one in Tanzania, exactly. So in Dar es Salaam. So I guess that's the whole issue. I think they're pretty moving forward, as Ali said. The World Bank knows that, look, they just set up Zanzibar as another Mauritius or another island off the coast that will become independent, has its own economy, has its own financial supermarket, financial services industry, which includes an exchange like on Seychelles Island. Let's see how it all plays out, by the way. But again, very briefly, a few seconds into the Kenya's plan to rebase, I hope Nigerian that's planned to rebase by the year 2022 will not fast track it and move it forward. If the Kenyans are doing it between now and the end of the year, let's hope that Nigerians won't just look like, say, hold on, why don't we just do it now? So let's just see how it all, the race for rebasing. Let's see how it goes. But I'm sure if Kenya rebase strongly between now and December, I'm sure Nigeria will fast track, will likely move its own plans forward.
Because again,
nobody wants to be left behind.
And everyone is bracing up for the AfCFTA as well. So you want to resize your economy and have a better data.
And have a better deal.
Yeah, exactly. Have a better deal. Have a better deal, sure. Right, West African and Nigerian markets headlines were Guarantee Trust Bank Nigeria on trading suspension ahead of Holdco listing on the Nigerian exchange. Custodian Investment buying over 34 million ordinary shares of UPDC. Olam International is to invest some 4.5 billion CFA franc to boost Togo's cotton industry. And the Bank of Ghana launches program to purchase gold locally. AfDB Group 2021 annual meetings virtually June 23rd to the 25th. That's a few days from now, in the next 2-3 days. ECOWAS is cutting structure to save money for community projects. And that may be something really positive. Let's hear your thoughts first, Bosin, about these headlines, and then we get...
You can be sure the ECOWAS meeting was what I got from our newsroom yesterday, that they have about 15 commissioners.
Oh, wow.
And they got presidents. Then they got a whole lot of vice presidents. And just look at the whole meeting. And you know, interestingly, the meeting was held in Accra, Ghana, by the way. So I'm sure the Ghanaian authorities must have told them, look at the AfCFTA secretariat that is here with wkly, Mene, and the rest of them. You can have a very nimble regional organization, because I'm sure the AfCFTA is not going to have 54 commissioners and a whole lot of whatever. No, it's not going to happen. So in this days of technology and whatever, we need to change a whole lot from these organizations that were set up 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I'm sure Ali will agree. Because the whole ECO is having with technology and information superhighway, you need to reduce your top heavy, and all the contributions that member states are bringing could be rejigged in a manner of speaking, instead of paying salaries, allowances, or remember, Temple, all of these are paid in dollar terms, by the way. So paying pensions and paying allowances, whatever, vehicles and tea and coffee and whatever, you can reduce all of that. And I think Ghana must have been the one to prompt this to happen, because the Ghanaians they're all getting a little bit less top heavy, by the way. So that's good news. I'll leave Ali to talk about AfDB and the GTBank Holdco structure, what he thinks, because he knows with the big boys in equity group, by the way, they are far ahead in all of that. But the Custodian investment story looks very interesting, because it looks like after they got a chunk from UACN, which was 61%, they're still bidding for more. So they're now going after the minority shareholders and trying to get a bit additional shares for this real estate. Now, the latest report was that Nigeria's prime, what you call the five-star real estate business segment is jumping. Well, I got that from this morning through that. Look, it's been really, really moving. I think folks are crawling back out of the pandemic, in a manner of speaking, and asset prices in prime places like downtown Lagos, in Abuja and what have you, are just jumping up.
Oh gosh, we're losing
right now. So the market, real estate market is hot. Early for real estate, and whether your money can get out of Nigeria when you need it.
Well, we'll see how to choose some data regarding the real estate, because I know for sure that we still have huge vacancy rates in the Ikoyi, the eyebrow axis of Lagos, Bosun, and I bet you know
just prices are moving up. No one knows why, but we're trying to find out why. Prices are just moving up.
Inflation. Right, Ali.
Ali's going to run away. Ali's going to run away from that.
Well, this will be the second AfDB meeting to be holding virtually, I guess, Ali.
Yes, absolutely. I think, you know, we're talking about ECOWAS, you know, in the context of African multilateral institutions. The AfDB, for me, under President Adesina, has been the preeminent multilateral institution. I think, you know, they've done a lot of heavy lifting. They've provided deep insights into the way the economy is working. And they continue to chivvy our policymakers along by providing them with a toolkit that they can utilize. Not all of them utilize it sufficiently. So overall, you know, I have to commend the AfDB. I think they've done a lot of work. My concern with their projections, which came out early in the year, well, that they were based on a very strong economic rebound unfolding, the mitigation of COVID, and clearly we're now in a third wave. And this third wave, the intensity of it looks much more intense than wave one and wave two. If you look at the numbers coming out of Southern Africa in particular, and you know, we're all hyper-connected. You start off in Southern Africa, you can see it spreading all the way up to Uganda now. I think in West Africa so far, you're okay, except for Sierra Leone. But, you know, this is probably a window. So my concern remains, you know, how much more firepower have African governments and the AfDB got in the event that we see a significant COVID intensification over the next few weeks. And final point, you know, Burson was talking about ECOWAS having, you know, 54 presidents and 54 vice presidents and 54 secretaries. You know, this is part of our problem, really. And it's not just ECOWAS, it's a lot of governments where we've got way too many people for what is a new world where you can serve people digitally. You can get much more bang for your buck. And I think that challenge remains the biggest challenge for African countries. How do they slice the recurrent expenditure component of their budgets? How do they reduce the cost of government, fine-tune it, and make it more responsive and more cost-effective for the citizens?
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you so very much. We'll move on now to the Southern African headlines. And we've got South Africa's fiscal ceiling won't be breached for wage bills, says Mboweni. I think that's the finance minister. The South African Airways rejects Imani Mining's help to repatriate 350 million rand in Zimbabwe. Capitec Bank earnings will be more than 3.3 billion rands in the half year to August. Staying-off investment holdings revenue up by 8% to 36.5 billion rands in the first 6 months. Export incentives lure Padenga Holdings towards some US dollar denominated VFX, actually. Bosun, let's hear your thoughts first on some of those headlines, and then we come back to Ali.
Well, at Temple, I'll speak briefly to Tito Mboweni. I think the whole issue of wage dispute between the workers and the government is still ongoing. So, but what he was saying over the weekend was that there will be no the government is not willing, is not ready to breach its fiscal ceiling. In other words, they're not ready to pile on more deficits just to take it out at the back end and give it to the workers. This is going to be a very tough work, by the way. I saw this morning in the news that the central bank governor, Leseja Kandiago, spoken about the fact that South Africa is ready to deal with the interest rate hike in the United States over the next 18 months or so, which has been talked about, and says that the SA will be ready for what will come from the FOMC. The currency, the rand, has gone up about 2.2% so far this year against the dollar. So not really a bad way, not very bad outing so far. If you look at other contemporary currencies, Uganda has done about 3% against the dollar. Naira has been down. I think a few countries have been able to make some good share. I think Kenya has a bit of a shillings gain so far this year with on the dollar. Then we've seen the dollar come back right now. So our number one emerging markets in Africa, which is South Africa, will have to be sure that things don't start spinning out of control again with the virus pandemic that we're still not sure where the end lies, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Bosun. Ali.
Yes, just to add to what Bosun was saying, I think, first of all, I'm a great admirer of Tito Mboweni. I think he's one of the few policymakers that speaks his mind, gets into trouble for it quite often, but he speaks very openly, and I think that's a wonderful political talent that he has. I think it would be a good sign if they don't breach the wage bill. They've had a good run lately. The rand has backed up a little bit, as Bosun was saying. It rallied probably about 5 to 6%, and now is up about 2.5%. And they've had this current account surplus, but they've tightened up one more level because of what has become a very, very violent third wave, particularly in Gauteng province, where Johannesburg is. But at the moment, I think they can manage it. But if it gets more intense, then they're going to face serious challenges. They can hardly afford another lockdown just at a time when the economy is beginning to build up some steam. If I could jump to a couple of other headlines of yours, the one about the Victoria Falls EX. This was the Zimbabwean capital markets reform, where they're trying to set up another exchange at Victoria Falls. And obviously, it's interesting that they're providing export incentives to try and make it more attractive. There was a lot of talk of the CBZ, which is the biggest bank in Zimbabwe, also listing at that exchange. We should keep an eye on that. South African Airlines rejecting Imani Mining help to repatriate 350 million rand in Zimbabwe. This also speaks to the challenge in Zimbabwe. Although the currency's improved, inflation's been improving, and the economy is projected to grow 6%. the challenge still remains the whole story around the currency. I, for one, think that they should do a CC and just go for a free float now and really find the true balance for supply and demand for that currency. I think it would net be a big win for incoming FDI.
Many thanks, Ali. Thanks a great deal. Northern African markets, and we've got Egypt Central Bank issuing some 18.5 billion Egyptian pounds worth of treasury bills. Bank du Caire reports net profits of 1 billion Egyptian pounds in the first quarter of the year. Electronic Finance gets Egypt's government approval to launch initial public offering. Sound Energy buys extra interest in Eastern Morocco. Tunisia food trade balance posts deficit of 688.3 million dinars in the month of May. MSC cruises back to Tunisia in July, and that's after 7 years of absence from that climb. Let's start with you, Ali, and finish off with Bosin to get his final comments.
If I can first start with Egypt, I was looking through the currency reaction since the FOMC meeting, where incredibly, just one extra quarter point 2 years in the future caused so much turbulence in the markets. Egypt's currency, of course, was the only one which barely moved. Had you been long Egypt, that would have been a shelter in the storm. So I continue to reiterate how well they manage the interest rates, the FX. They got a lot of hot money sitting in there, but there's never been any doubt from anyone's mind since 2016 that they would be honorable and hold the value of the currency. And I think that's a significant statement which goes towards confidence building in any economy. And, and if you compare it to yourselves in Nigeria, this has been the challenge, that people have felt trapped. They haven't been able to get out of their investments. And I think that difference, that ability to give people confidence, has a very positive multiplier feedback loop effect that Egypt is reaping. Just to go through your other headlines, clearly, there's quite a bit of activity going on now. Egypt as a stock market is significantly undercapitalized. So I think there's an interesting opportunity for Egypt to increase the number of listings coming to the stock exchange to better reflect the value of the economy and the GDP.
Thank you so much, Ali. Bosin, your thoughts?
Well, the final touch is the MSC Cruise that is returning to Tunisia after 7 years. I'm sure Ali and the rest of us, maybe how we're doing the next anniversary of the Frontier Africa report, I think we might just all go to Tunisia and take the cruise liner, because after 7 years, the whole political, the Arab Spring and what have you, I think a whole lot of folks just ran away from that region. Now they are coming back. So maybe we'll just talk to the MSC Cruise guys, just starting in July. They're returning in July, then the first voyage will be by November. So it's never too late for us to get immunized and maybe just have a party on the cruise ship and come back at the Mediterranean.
What a way.
Okay, Ali's bidding. Ali can use some cruise,
Oh, it's very
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for making this very first edition of our show this week. Ali Kansachu from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much. Bosin in Lagos. Thanks a great deal. Bosin Omofaya, Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. And I'm Temple Ashaju. This has been the show, Frontier Opening Bell for today. We'll gather to see you again tomorrow with some analysis across headlines from across Africa. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.